Watching Yuji's drive to save people in Season 2 of Jujutsu Kaisen got me thinking. You know who Yuji reminds me of? Spider-Man. So the next logical question, of course, was what happens when they face off against each other, and that's precisely what today's video is about. Semi-first grade Jujutsu sorcerer Yuji Itadori fights our friendly neighborhood web-slinger Spider-Man. We'll be going over their abilities and some notable feats of each character before pitting them against each other in a fight to the death. Although at times it may not feel like it, Yuji is the protagonist of the Jujutsu Kaisen anime manga series. A 15-year-old high school student living a simple life in Sendai City when one day the occult club that Yuji is a part of starts meddling with an ancient artifact, turning their whole school into a battleground for these invisible monsters known as curses. From there, Yuji is introduced to Megumi Fushiguro, and his drive to protect everyone drags him into the world of Jujutsu sorcery. To save his friends, Yuji is forced to eat the ancient artifact, a cursed object which is a finger belonging to Ryomen Sukuna, accidentally reviving the king of curses into the modern age. Yuji goes on to share his body with Sukuna as he becomes a student at Tokyo Jujutsu Tech, a school for Jujutsu sorcerers studying under the strongest sorcerer of their time, Satoru Gojo. Other than all that, Yuji is just simply a great guy. He has a great appreciation for the value of life, and he feels a strong desire to save people, not just the people closest to him, but anyone he possibly can, trying to ensure that they receive a proper death. Since the beginning of the series, Yuji is shown to have unnatural superhuman strength even before he had anything to do with the world of Jujutsu sorcery. We see him hurl a metal ball over 30 meters with ease, breaking the world record for the longest throw. We also see him tossing cars and punching through solid concrete and all of that without even using curse energy. Factoring in his use of curse energy takes his strength to a whole new level. The first move he learns using his curse energy is his divergent fist, which is basically a double punch where his curse energy lags behind his initial blow, delivering a second, even more powerful impact. At the end of the Kyoto Sister School Arc event, we see Yuji learn his second curse energy ability, the Black Flash, an attack that makes any hit 2.5 times stronger. Given the amount of focus the Black Flash requires and how fast Yuji was able to master it, so much so that he was able to use it 4 times in a row. We can see that Yuji is also a proficient learner, allowing him to progress faster than normal. Yuji is also shown to be extremely fast, supposedly able to run 50 meters in 3 seconds, breaking another world record in track. Not only is he fast, but he's got reflexes to match, and we see that when he's able to dodge the Kyoto students when they jump him all at once. And again when we see him duck out of the way of Choso's piercing blood, an attack that launches at the speed of sound. In regards to feats, Yuji's super strength lets him do things like jumping multiple stories in the first episode. He has some incredible combat capabilities, enough that he can hold his own against enemies that are way above his grade level. We see him throw down with special grade curses quite regularly. Special grade curses are the strongest type of curses in the JJK verse, albeit the scaling is a bit lax because within the special grade tier, you can have some insane power differences. For example, from the detention center and Sukuna are considered special grade, so that doesn't tell us much. But we've seen Yuji fight the disaster curse Hanami, severely beating it down with the help of Todo, and we've seen him go up against Mahito, the strongest disaster curse. For context, the disaster curses are somewhat in the upper echelons of the special grades, and strong enough to destroy several city blocks. Mahito is the strongest disaster curse, and we see him go up against Yuji in Shibuya, with Yuji ultimately winning with help, of course. So let's talk about a solo fight. Initially, in his fight with Choso, we see Yuji take on the full force of the piercing blood attack, showcasing his insane durability, because just a moment later, we see the same attack cut through concrete and steel, proving just how tough Yuji is. Yuji's strength and durability seems to increase massively as the story progresses, and in his fight with Sukuna, the most powerful being in the Jujutsu Kaisen universe, we see him at his strongest when he leaps all the way up through a building in chapter 214, kicks a massive boulder at Sukuna, and walks straight through a barrage of his slashing attacks. Sukuna himself is surprised when that happens, and it's sort of hinted at in the previous season when we saw Yuji land a punch on Sukuna inside his innate domain. Additionally, Gojo mentions that Yuji's right up there alongside with Yuta Okotsuku and Hikari Kinji, pretty big names in the JJK verse. Who is Spider-Man? Alright, first of all, if you don't know who Spider-Man is by now, welcome back from whatever rock you've been living under. Spider-Man is arguably the most popular and the most impactful superhero of our generation. Whether it be from the comics, the games, or the insanely popular MCU movies, everyone is at least somewhat familiar with the gist of the character. Peter Parker, a nerdy genius, gets bitten by a radioactive spider, giving him all the powers of a spider, which includes super reflexes, super strength, the ability to climb walls, and a heightened sense of danger detection. more popularly known as the Spidey sense. Peter, as a person, is a kind-hearted individual that just wants to do the right thing, a quality instilled in him by his Uncle Ben with his iconic line,
"With great power comes great responsibility,"
before tragically passing away and leaving Peter to take care of his Aunt May. Spider-Man is almost a household name thanks to the success of the Marvel movies with Tom Holland and the Sam Raimi trilogy with Tobey Maguire before that. With all these different versions of the character scattered throughout different media and an entire multiverse of Spider-Man called the Spider-Verse, it's tough to pick one that would go up against Yuji. So for the purposes of this video, we'll simply be sticking to the latest version of the character, and right now that would be Insomniac Spider-Man from the recently released Spider-Man 2 game. We will also be sticking to just the games themselves and ignoring all appearances of the Insomniac Spider-Man in any other media. In the game, Peter Parker is a 23-year-old research assistant at Octavius Industries. He was bitten by a spider 8 years ago and has been swinging around New York ever since. Starting off with the basics, Spider-Man has incredible superhuman strength, enough to throw cars and pull semi-trucks very easily. In the game, we are told he can lift up to 10 tons, but we consistently see him going beyond that. Other than strength, he's also got speed, along with some crazy fast reflexes, enough to dodge several bullets being shot at him simultaneously. And of course, he wouldn't be called Spider-Man without his most iconic ability, the webs. Spider-Man has web shooters mounted on his wrist that he uses to swing around the city, capture his enemies, and attack them from a distance. Keeping with the theme, he can also climb on walls and stick to all other surfaces. And those are just the basics. Arguably, the most important power is his intellect. The guy is a super genius, and he uses that in the game to give himself all sorts of gadgets and upgrades, such as the impact webs that instantly web up enemies, electric webs that stun his enemies, web mines that can be used, and traps and web bombs that web up enemies in a given area. He's also got web drones that act autonomously to attack enemies, and those are just some of his fancy toys. We see a couple more in Spider-Man 2, like the mechanical spider arms and the web glider. And then there are the symbiotes. When Peter acquires the symbiote, or more like when the symbiote acquires him, Spider-Man gets a pretty significant boost in his overall stats, along with an insane healing factor that allows him to heal a shattered arm instantly and even brings him back from the brink of death. That suit allows him to extend and manipulate these tendrils, which significantly increase his range of attacks. His symbiote suit can also create this weird spike ball that attacks in all directions. There's also the anti-venom suit, but there isn't much of a difference between that and the venom suit as far as this video is concerned, so we'll overlook it. I know we mentioned that Spider-Man has superhuman strength, but if it wasn't clear before, here are some of the most impressive physical feats. Starting off with this fight with Rhino. Rhino is one of the toughest opponents in Spider-Man's long list of villains. He is strong enough to destroy multi-city blocks with just his entire body alone, and Spider-Man still manages to hurt him through all that armor and even puts him out. He can easily kick around massive water tanks, pull a helicopter down, and stop a huge truck by getting in front of it. We've seen Spider-Man hold up an enormous construction crane multiple hundred stories tall and lift or even break apart massive pieces of rubble. Spider-Man is durable enough to survive a power plant explosion and resilient enough to keep fighting Electro, another at least building level enemy, despite being heavily injured. Shocker slams Spider-Man through a vault door and the door breaks before he does. That's pretty common in the game. We see Spider-Man tank hits from enemies way stronger than him and take only minimal damage, if any. A good example would be the fight with Sandman at the start of Spider-Man 2 when Peter gets slammed to the ground by a building-sized opponent and is just pretty much fine afterwards. We see him use his Spidey sense and reflexes to effortlessly dodge bullets, catch arrows, and even evade Electro's lightning. After acquiring the symbiote suit, Spider-Man is able to easily hold down and overpower Lizard, who is strong enough to tear through buildings. With the anti-venom suit, Spider-Man goes up against Venom, who is strong enough to lift up an entire stadium and ultimately defeats him. Alright, let's set the scene a little. A special grade curse has made its way to New York somehow and is on a rampage, destroying everything. Jujutsu Tech Tokyo sends over their best students to handle the problem because, as we know from the manga, there aren't many Jujutsu sorcerers outside of Japan. Yuji Itadori arrives in New York and immediately goes after his special grade curse. Unbeknownst to him, a web-slinging superhero is already on the case, trying to track down an invisible monster wreaking havoc on the city. However, since Spider-Man can't see curses and Yuji Yuji can. He gets to the curse first and exercises it just as Spider-Man shows up. Spider-Man assumes that the strange kid is responsible for all the destruction around the city, and the two heroes face off. Instantly, Spider-Man would try to web up Yuji and restrain him, but Yuji would tear through the initial webs without even thinking about it. And having seen how they work, he would then easily be able to avoid the web shots at him from a distance, forcing Spider-Man to close the distance and fight him head on. As soon as Spider-Man is in range, Yuji would start throwing hands immediately, because let's face it, that's pretty much all he can do. But he's very good at it. Spider-Man can dodge Yuji, but he feels himself getting pressured as Yuji relentlessly keeps coming at him until he lands a hit and sends Spider-Man reeling back. After feeling the force behind Yuji's punch, Spider-Man would understand that he is not an ordinary kid, and Spider-Man would bring out all his tech toys, taking the fight much more seriously. With gadgets like the web bombs and the mechanical spider arms, the effective area of Spider-Man's attack would be greatly increased, and Yuji would not be able to dodge them in time. Yuji would get ensnared by Spidey's webs, giving Peter the opportunity to unleash a beatdown on Yuji. Yuji can probably tank most of Spider-Man's hits, having taken building level attack before, but eventually he starts taking some serious damage. Yuji can't use reverse curse techniques, so his only option would be to break out of the webs and gain some distance. But that wouldn't help, since Spider-Man has plenty of gadgets to help with range attacks, like his impact webs and the drones, which he would use against Yuji before Yuji has a chance to regain his balance. Yuji would feel the pressure building up and charge straight at Spider-Man to land a blow. Pete's Spidey sense, having already been hit once, would be able to detect Yuji's curse energy output, similar to how we see Toji sense cursed spirits despite not being able to see them. This would allow Spider-Man to read Yuji's movements, dodge and block any of his attacks, and counter with blows of his own. But if there's anything we know about Yuji, it's that if it's just pain, then Yuji will not stop. Yuji will press on, focusing his mind till the instant he can get close and land a Black Flash, sending Spider-Man flying back. However, although the Black Flash is a powerful move, there's only so many times he can use it. Certainly not enough times to put out Spider-Man. Spider-Man would eventually get the upper hand, overpowering Yuji. If Yuji still puts up a fight, Spider-Man can always pull out the symbiote suit. With that, Yuji's chances of winning would go from slim to none, as Venom's rage would take over Peter and he would absolutely thrash Yuji around. But here's the technicality. Since the symbiote is not actually Spider-Man but another being entirely, that wouldn't be a fair fight. So, to make things more even, let's have one of Yuji's classmates show up to fight alongside him. As Yuji's getting the life kicked out of him, Megumi shows up for the assist, summoning his divine dogs to attack Spidey while he saves Yuji with rapid escape. Spidey would easily rip through the dogs with the symbiote spikes, and most of his other Shikigami wouldn't do much either, since none of them have any sonic attacks. Nue might be able to deal some damage, but nothing Venom couldn't heal from before Spider-Man webs it up too. Yuji and Megumi could try jumping Spider-Man together, but with his multi-directional attacks, that wouldn't be a problem for Spidey at all. With their options exhausted, both of them will ultimately lose, as Spider-Man along with the Venom symbiote keeps beating down on them, taking the final win. Now, this fight could have gone a lot differently if Megumi had decided to use his ultimate trump card, the God Shikigami Maharaga. To see what a fight with Maharaga would look like, check out the previous video in the series right here.